now 6:13. I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Aransas Pass Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. First, I want to apologize for technical difficulties for us to stream live. We are live now, so thank you for joining us. Today is March 23rd, 2020. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum of the trustees present. At this time, I'm going to ask Vice President Mullinack to lead us in the pledges, and Trustee Richter will lead us in the invocation. If everyone will please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come this afternoon to ask for grace and mercy for all this nation as we deal with coronavirus. Oh God, we pray and ask your blessing on all those family members who are lost to this virus. And then we want to thank you for our staff, thank you for our students as they await the time to get back to the classroom. Then, oh God, we ask special blessings on Miss Branch right now and her family. I pray, oh God, just cover her body with your healing power, because we know you rules over everything. Then, oh God, we ask your blessings upon this meeting this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John and David. Before we start the agenda, there are a few housekeeping matters that I do want to address. First, I want to welcome everyone who's joining us via Facebook Live. We are streaming this meeting live on Facebook for you, our constituents, who may be interested in watching the proceedings so that you can have the most current information about our district's operational status. Due to health and safety concerns related to COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be physically closed to our public. On March the 16th, Texas Governor Abbott temporarily suspended certain Texas Open Meetings Act provisions, allowing government entities some flexibility in conducting their meetings during the pandemic. For the record, this meeting is being held in compliance with the current provisions provided by his office. At least a quorum of the board will be participating within the provisions of sections 551.125, 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that have not been suspended by the governor. Second, public notice we provided for this meeting disclosed that members of the public could access our meeting this evening via the APISD Facebook page. Additionally, the notice provided that members of the community could email their testimony to district staff prior to 5 p.m. so that their testimony could be read during our meeting. Third, as most of you know, on Thursday, March 19th, Governor Abbott signed an executive order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in Texas. That executive order mandated that every person in Texas avoid gatherings in groups of more than 10 people, that schools be temporarily closed in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, along with executive orders affecting other sectors of our community. For the public record and for the citizens watching live, please know this meeting is being held in compliance with this order. There are 10 people or less present for this evening's meeting. And then lastly, we all know, especially this Board of Trustees, that Superintendent Cook and her administrative team have been extremely busy these last few weeks, working hard to implement all the recommendations and best practices provided by our state and local agencies. They've been working diligently to protect the health and welfare of all our students, all our employees, and our community. In a few minutes, Ms. Cook will give us a detailed summary of what has been accomplished and what is being planned for the weeks to come. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank you and your team for everything that you've been doing for us. With that said, we're going to move on to agenda item number 2, which is public testimony. Has anyone emailed us any public information to be read or to be asked?
No.
With there being no public testimony, we're going to move to agenda item 3, which is a report on the district's operational status. Ms. Cook, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Okay, as you've already stated, we did close school the week of March 16th through the 20th. That was our first week to be closed. During that time, to cover those minutes, we're utilizing our extra minutes that we have built into our calendar. That gave us a week to determine how to proceed and to evaluate the processes and procedures that we needed to put in place. We began modified operations today, March 23rd, and we have deemed this to continue until April 9th. We did this in conjunction with reaching out to other area and region superintendents so that we were all in sync together for our region and area. And I appreciate that collaboration with all those great superintendents. We have put our hope and prayers are that we can end this modified operation at that time, which would be the Thursday before Easter break. The student holiday and staff holiday on the 10th would stay in place. Then on that Monday, April 13th, our plan is for the teachers to return to begin the transition from distance learning back to in-class learning, and students returning on April 14th. That is our current plan based on the information we have, but we will have to continue to evaluate that as days go by. Food service began that very first week on Tuesday, March 17th. We immediately on that Monday met and determined we needed to get that rolling as soon as possible so that our students could be fed. So our staff worked diligently to make that happen, and I want to thank them for our APISD food service staff is phenomenal. They have worked very quickly and carefully and managed to get things rolling quickly. We offer food service Monday through Fridays, beginning at 11:30 a.m. until 1 o'clock p.m. in front of Falk Elementary. It's curbside pickup. The parents can drive through with their children. The children have to be present according to the guidelines of the grant. We then serve them last week we're serving a sack lunch and their milk. We began service this week today with also being able to do a sack lunch and a breakfast that they can have for the next day. On Tuesday, our first day, we had 184 lunches that we gave. Wednesday, 200. Thursday, 246. And then on Friday, we would get back down a little bit with 193. Today, when we started the breakfast and lunch, we had 360 students that were fed. They each received a breakfast and a lunch, so that were 720 meals that was handed out today. That is makes us feel good because this is very difficult not to be able to see our students and take care of them, and so to be able to give them these meals, it really means a lot. When we had the sign-up sheet go out for volunteers to abide, so we could abide by no more than 10 out there at a time, I asked for volunteers to sign up to go no more than 3 along with the food service to hand out, and within a few minutes of us posting it, it was completely filled. And people saying, I wanted to sign up. And I said, well, hopefully you don't get a chance to, but there could possibly be more days that we have to sign up. So that's a testament to the great staff that we have, watching them out there. We have one of our teachers that dressed up in the dinosaur costume that they've used at early arrival to celebrate. The teachers, we've had to stop them and say you can't hug your children, you can't touch them, you just have to wave at them because they want to go and let them know that they care about them. So it's been fun to watch the students yelling from the windows, hello, Miss So-and-so or whomever, and just see the smiles on their faces. So the teachers and students all miss each other so much. We've also had in our system, it's been happening here at Charlie Marshall this year with the Be a Champion program. It's an after-school meal program that we had, and they reached out to us and wanted to, they got permission through their grant to do more than just an after-school program, that in light of the circumstances, they have been granted the opportunity to hand out these meals to our families. So they will be joining us on Wednesday in the line, and their plan is that it's like little lunchable type meals that can be put in the refrigerator and kept for several days. they will be here and they will also be handing that out to our families. So that will help our families then to be able to put some things in the refrigerator and keep them for the days to come. So we appreciate that. Like I said, that will begin Wednesday. So that's our food service program that's been going very well. Then talking with Commissioner Morath, looking to the future in order to first and foremost provide an educational opportunity for our students as they are at home. We all began to look at what that would look like. The Texas Education Agency has put in place that we must offer some type of distance learning for our students in order for us to count this as school days. But our main focus is, yes, we want to have that counted and so forth with the education agency for funding purposes, of course, because that's what keeps our teachers paid and keeps us running. But I want to stress that our main reason for working so hard this past week to get this in place was not solely for that, it was mainly for our kids. We want to make sure our students have what they need so that we do not cause a deficit in their learning. We realize that this is a difficult challenge. Yes, it was for us to prepare and put in place a distance learning process in a matter of pretty much 24 hours is what happened. Something that normally would take weeks, months, if not a year to do correctly. But our staff rose to the occasion and they made it happen. We know that this is difficult for our parents, and we try to be very aware of that as we are working through this. So how we could make it family friendly, do it very carefully, and not overwhelm them. We realize this is a very, very stressful time for all. We know that some families may have lost their jobs. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet. Their children are all at home now, and we're asking them to homeschool. I know you've seen a lot of the posts on Facebook that have been quite hilarious, but very true of what our parents are having to go through to have little ones running around, and then the expectation that now we're going to teach our children lessons. So we tried to be careful in the lessons that were designed and that were sent out, and we're going to continue to evaluate and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students, but also being parent friendly. We want to provide the support that they need. So we have in place many things to help support our parents. The distance learning did begin today. We have on our website, as I put up on the screen for you to look at if you've not seen it yet. This is on our page. If I go back, no, it just goes there. If you click, I don't want to mess it up now. Let me see if I can go back this way. Okay, this is when you go to our first page. We have this where now it's just distance learning. Click for guidelines, or you can come up to this tab, and we have APIS distance learning. We also have all this information about our meals, our closure status. We have an FAQ for answering questions that are submitted in our distance learning again. So we've tried to make it very simple so parents can come in and find what they need very quickly and not have to look at it. We don't want to add any more stressors. So when they come into, like I said, there's about 3 ways to click into it. Then here's our distance learning resource page. And we have here where we've started our closure at this point, talking about our priority is the student and family safety, and then our pickup packets and online. We realize that some of our parents can have access to computers and internet and could do the packets and the work online, so we have created it so that is available here at this stop. They can go in, and if they have a H.T. Falk Elementary student, they come in, let's say they're in pre-K. I think the internet's slow. We've got everybody in town on the internet. And then they'll be able to, all the work is here for each grade level. So if they're in pre-K, they can click on this and open it up, and they can see the work. It can be printed out. depending on which system is being used. I know for a high school, for Google Classrooms, they can do the work online and submit it that way. Most of these are print out and done, because that's more hands-on for our babies. But they can access all of the information online and work through it from that direction and then send it back to us online, take pictures of it, send it to us, however they can get it back to us. But we realize that a majority of our parents do not have access to this. So with that, we have provided for them the opportunity to, let me go back, do an offline, and so we have packets that can be picked up. And we have it on Mondays from 8 to 4 p.m. Today was our first day to do that. Each campus has curbside pickup. They can come through. They will go out, ask them their child's name, grade level, and then they will give them the packets, any supplies that were needed, any extra resources, if they have special needs, or anything that the child needs to be successful. We've tried to provide that in their packets. They take these packets home, they work on them, they have the entire week to work on. The teachers will be contacting each child or parent during the week to see, or how are you doing? Is there any way we can support you? They'll be doing that either through phone calls or emails, so we can provide that support. So teachers are working, they will be working each day to make these contacts and provide the support, and they're willing and ready to do that. Then on next Monday, they have been directed to bring the completed packets back, and we'll have a drop-off location for them, and then they will pick up their next week packet, and we'll just continue this process for as long as we're out of school. Some of the questions that we've asked have been, what about the safety of doing that for our teachers and for the parents? We have CDC and TEA guidelines that we have been given. We're following those very closely, ensuring that we're keeping the distancing, that hand sanitizing and washing is done. Packets that were created were put in tubs over the weekend and sealed up so that all germs could die off if there were any. Since there's so many unknowns to this virus, we are trying to do everything we can. When they bring them back, they will be dropped off in tubs and sealed up, and they will not be even touched by the teachers for at least 48 to 72 hours before the teachers will receive them to grade them. When the teachers come up, they're asked to stay, keep that social distancing, and be very careful about all, because teachers like to, we all do, that's just natural to want to join together. We're watching that closely and reminding them, please keep your distance and watch one another. No children are allowed in the buildings. Their children, unfortunately, we cannot do that, just for their protection and for keeping everything clean and sanitized. Custodians are still coming up several times a week. We have strategically placed the times they come, so like this evening, they're all on every campus cleaning very thoroughly, since there were more teachers on campus. So we're trying to be very aware of protecting our staff while providing for our families what they need. And we're constantly, the safety has been our top priority through all of this while we meet all of these mandates. Today, to give you a rundown, high school packets, we had 128 that were picked up and 22 that are actually doing it online. They wanted offline packets, so they came through. So they handed out about 150 total. They're going to be contacting all those, looking at who's online, who's offline, and then the teachers will start contacting those students to schedule times to get them the work that they need. Middle school had 60% of each grade level that was picked up today. We have to say, for the first time doing this, we were quite amazed. We were a little concerned about what this might look like. But 60%, Charlie Marshall had an average of 75% per grade level, and Falk, at the time of me typing this, they were still looking through that. They were still diving through all of their totals. Just of any indication, when I was there and drove by several times, I feel like their percentages are probably at least 75% or not higher of picking up their packets. So that is kudos to our parents. They take education for their children seriously, and they made time to come up and take care of business and get the packets. Then we'll contact, as I said, every family that did not receive them, how can we help you? What do you need to get those packets in their hands or provide the support that they need? I asked them to tell me celebrations that they had today, and they said parents were very appreciative and responded very well. And we thank them so much for that, because this has been very tough on everyone, and we just feel like everybody knows we're in this together. There was a good flow to the pickup process, and the few things we need to work on, we'll be tweaking that. The only concerns we've had have been with the Wi-Fi connectivity in the community. We're understanding it's very slow, so those that are trying to get online are having difficulty, either with it moving slow or just getting connected. So I don't know, that we don't really have control over how to handle that. But I know that I'm going to personally reach out to our Sparklight and some of those that have our internet service and see if there's anything they can do. But I think what's happening is we just have so many people that are not normally on the internet all at once doing that. Also, as I mentioned, some people questioned us about the safety of handling materials, and as I said, we're using those guidelines, and the TA commissioner even put out a special document on the COVID-19 page on the TA website about all of this, and we're making sure that we're following all of those guidelines. I did want to mention that Sparklight has came and put a Wi-Fi hotspot over in our high school parking lot area on the right side of the building in the teachers' parking lot area, and we're pushing that out to the parents, letting them know that's a hotspot if they have a device, that they don't have the internet at home. Sparklight also has it open at their office area. So we appreciate that support in providing that to our parents. Our next steps is basically we have worked very hard this past week to put all of this in place. When I typed this up, I thought, well, that sounds so simple. But I have to applaud all of our staff. They did an amazing job. I've told y'all since I got here, I think we have the best staff in the world. And once again, they proved it. And this is my first disaster type event as a superintendent, thank goodness. Hopefully my last. But those of you that have been here, this is, it's been amazing to watch. I said, oh, this is nothing. Hey, when we went through Harvey, we didn't even have a place, some of us didn't have a place to go stay, and our buildings were destroyed. And, so it's just been very inspiring to me that everybody's just like, we can do this, we've got this. Let's roll up our sleeves, let's get busy, and let's take care of each other and take care of business. And so once again, I'm very proud of our staff, very proud of this community, and cannot think of a better place to be. You're going to have to go through a disaster. The next steps will be to continue this distance learning in our food service, and we are already planning for the potential declaration of shelter in place. We listened to our governor yesterday mention that he's been asked about that, but he's chosen not to do that at this point because some counties do not have any cases at this moment. But I do know there's quite a few counties that have their local government have made those declarations. So it's a filling in the ranks that it's just could be a matter of time before that could happen. So we want to try to be ahead of the game. So I've already had a meeting with a group this afternoon looking at what that would look like. Commissioner Morath in his 3 o'clock address stated pretty much that the expectation is that when they do shelter in place, it's only essential personnel and people are supposed to go out into their workplace and so forth. And the feeling is that food service for our students and learning opportunities for them is essential, is the message that was conveyed today. So we will be working on our shelter in place plan should that occur. So how will we protect our staff while we provide these services to our families? So we are currently working on that in hopes that we do not have to implement that, but we are working on that plan very diligently. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
I have a couple. I know there's been several updates released by TEA, and we have a big group of seniors that are sitting out there nervous of what their senior year is going to look like. What has TEA released as far as end-of-course exams, and do we have the authority to locally to make a decision on it?
Yes, that all testing has, thank you, I totally forgot that one, that was a big one, that was a big hallelujah day. All testing, STAR testing and EOC testing has been, I just lost it. Suspended, thank you, for this year. There will be none for this year. And so our questions were, okay, what do we do, especially with our seniors? And it will be a local governance piece. So we will be putting in place, they've already been putting out FAQ sheets and lots of information. I mean, they did a lot this week and I haven't even had a chance to read all of it. But we're going through the guidelines of how, you know, because they're going to set certain guidelines that we need to follow, but they're going to allow us to look at and give credit to our students for this year based off of their grades and the other data points that we have based off of their past EOC tests that they've taken and where they were in the testing process. So they will not be held back because they're not able to take their last EOC testing. So we do have that authority to look at that, and we've already begun that process.
And that'll be a local decision.
Yes.
And I know it's kind of premature, but has there been any discussions out of the governor's office on hope harmless for funding?
When they talk about funding, they are telling us constantly to document, which we started immediately. If we learned anything from Harvey, we learned that documentation is so important. So we have started those. We have all that in place. We are documenting everyone's minutes that they step on a building, or if they're working from home, everything, contacts with parents, with students. So they are saying that that we are to make sure that we keep all this documentation, and so they're not saying there will be, but if and when there's an opportunity for us to be reimbursed for any of this information, then we would be able to get that reimbursement. Of course, they are saying that the money, as far as our how we're normally funded through the state, that money's still flowing, and that's the whole point of the distance learning and so forth. It's just weird. That's why it's not saying we're closed. We have a modified operations because we are still having school. We've just flipped it and we're doing it differently. We're not doing it inside the buildings.
Those are only two questions.
I have one. You know, I know our seniors are applying for scholarships. They start that process before the spring break, and that's been disrupted. Is our counselors notified? You know, we got contact with the people giving scholarships, or they're still going to give them the students to have to apply for them, and we got data out there for the
The
students.
counselors have been on, I saw one of them today out helping pass out packets. They are working with our students. They're working to ensure that our seniors have all that they need, whether it's scholarship information or finishing out any of that information. They're working with them. Everyone's still working, they're just working from a distance. So they're making sure that that's being taken care of. As far as deadlines being moved and so forth, I'm not aware of those, but I'm sure the counselors are checking to make sure what needs to be done there. They've already started also looking ahead to scheduling and they're going to be calling each student and talking with them for our students that are coming up, what courses they're wanting to take. So we're already still preparing for next year because those are things we normally do now. So they're taking it up on themselves to begin that process and having to do it in a very different way than we normally do, but they're trying to make sure that all students' needs are met.
Okay, thank you.
Will this affect ranking in any way, or we just stop from where we're at and calculate and that's it?
Well, that has been a huge question and a big concern, I know, for many of our students. We've talked about this across the state also, and basically the recommendation we've been given is to prepare a resolution to look at having, our policy says that we look at ranking at the end of the 5th 6 weeks, which is right where we are now. That is, very different type learning style. So to be fair to our students across the state, we're being advised to look at the end of the 4th 6 weeks. And so we're working on a resolution with the TASB attorneys to have that prepared and what that would look like. And so at the April board meeting, we'll be bringing that to you. I'd hope to have it by tonight, but we didn't. I think they're still trying to work through some things because that's very new and different. So we want to make sure we've looked at it very carefully. So we'll be bringing that to you in April. And the high school staff is working to help the students understand what's happening and how this would be more fair to them than for us to take these grades that are coming from a distance learning.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If you'd like to know more, if you haven't gone to the TA website, there is a COVID-19 update page, and it has lots of this information. It has all of our superintendent notes from all of our meetings we've had. It has the every template and all these FAQ pages. So if you get bored, that's a great place to go and look. You know, you may find something before I do. I mean, I've got a team of people helping me read through all this because it's coming at us so fast, and then as soon as we think we figured it out, the next day it's like it changed again. So I appreciate your patience with us, and I have to just say again how proud I am of our staff and our whole community coming together, and we're going to get through this. It's tough right now, but we're going to get through this.
Sure, will you do us a favor in your update? I know you're sending updates every
It's been daily lately,
day.
but.
To staff, will you please make sure and let them know that the board appreciates everything.
Oh, yes, to the
And the
staff, I
hard work
will.
and the community appreciates all the safeguards that you guys have put in place to protect everyone. Other questions? I'll move forward. Agenda item number 4 is an action item to consideration and possible action to approve a resolution regarding staff compensation during COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Cook?
This has been drafted for this special circumstance, basically asking through this resolution for me to have the authority to continue to make sure that we pay all of our staff. And when I say all of our staff, it's our bus drivers, our maintenance, custodians, everyone, that we will continue to pay them the salaries that they have been expecting through this process. The way we're understanding this, like I said, our first 4 days, because one day was a student work holiday, 4 days were covered by our minutes, so that's just a normal process. But that we are hearing from the commissioner that everything will continue to flow, so this should not affect us, except that we just will continue to, our budget that we had prepared, we will continue to use the funding as designated to continue to do that. So even though people are not in a building, teachers are still working, custodians are still coming in as much as they can, maintenance is still out trying to work. So we want to be able to pay them. Bus drivers are not doing, we haven't called them in at this point, but if we go to shelter in place, they may play a bigger part in that as if we have to go out into the community to deliver things. I'm also looking at in this plan that any hourly non-exempt employees that we ask to come in to physically work, that we pay them time and a half. That is per our policy for a disaster declaration. We are not necessarily in a disaster declaration now because we're under modified operations, but I would like to propose that because we're bringing them in and having them in some certain conditions with our food service maintenance custodians, that and some of our paraprofessionals, business office, some of those, that we pay them at that rate.
So that's in the resolution here. It says administratively regarding compensation for all employees for the superintendent to be designated authority. So that's what you're speaking to.
Yes, that's why I wanted to make sure that was very clear, because when our attorney sent this, she didn't spell it out like every little piece, so I wanted to go on record making sure that when you approve this, you understand everyone will be paid, and then any non-exempt employees that come in and have to physically work, and we have been working on very, just minimal schedules as needed, they would be time and a half.
Will you share with the board what your mind thought is if we do go into a shelter in place? And what is our expectation going to be of our employees? If public school is considered essential, but we're in shelter in place, what policy or what administrative regulation will you have in place as far as expectation for our employees?
Well, at this point, we have put in place everything that we can, the under 10 being together, following all the guidelines for safety procedures. So we will make sure that we continue that. I think what we have in place has been pretty strict. We would probably limit maintenance at this time unless it was a water line breaks or something. Right now, we have them coming in, doing maintenance type thing, even trying to get ahead on the summer. If shelter in place, we would stop that. They would only come in if there was an absolute necessary need for that. There was a danger or safety issue. Our food service would still need to come in, but we would try to put even more, how can we support them and spreading them out further? What things can we do to just continue to support their safety? They would need to come in to provide that. Teachers, we would still need them to come in to prepare packets. We would probably make like a schedule where, we've been like, you come in and just don't get around each other. We would probably make more of a strict schedule, like A to M comes in at this time, and, so that's, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head because we haven't had a chance to look at this, but these are things I'm imagining that we'll just put stricter guidelines to manage who's on campus, how long you're there, did we clean up afterwards, did we protect you at all times, and then anything that's being handed out, how are we making sure that when we hand it out to our parents that it's clean and safe for them also.
Right, and just, I want to probably state the obvious here, but we all know that medically, that there's a segment of our population that is really at risk, and that's our seniors. And I'm sure we have some employees that fit into that category that are still working. What are we going to have in place for them as far as if we are in shelter in place, the expectation for them to come to work if they're trying to protect their health and wanting to stay home?
Well, and that's a good question because I think that's going to be something as we move forward to look at. You have to be careful when you talk about age, but I think here is that time where we need to look at that and look at health conditions, underlying health conditions they may have, and really consider which of our workforce is at the level of health, I guess I could say, to take care of what needs to be done and be less at risk, where we protect those that would be more at risk. So I think we're going to have to drill down a little more to what that looks like as this continues. This is also new for all of us, and everybody wants to be hands on deck and just putting themselves out there, but I feel very responsible for each one of our employees, and I feel like we've got to make good decisions and protect them from themselves, you might say, because they want to come to work, they want to take care of business. So I believe that especially if we come to that point of shelter in place, that's a clear sign we have got to be very strict and very strategic in who is on campus, why they're on campus, because that's the whole point of the shelter in place.
Anybody else have any questions? For the record, I'm going to read the resolution into the record. Aransas Pass ISD Board Resolution regarding staff compensation during COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the Aransas Pass Independent School District, APISD, will close for a period of time to be determined and subject to adjustment pursuant to federal, state, and local mandates in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the district may experience limited or modified operations for an even greater length of time beyond this period of initial closure. Whereas the district employs approximately 320 individuals, some of whom are employed on a contract basis and others at will, each of whom contributes to the district's work to educate the approximately 1,600 students who attend our schools and who are charged to keep safe. Whereas the public purposes of the district is served by compensating all employees during this time of closure, as doing so will safeguard the health of our children, our families, our staff, and our community. Whereas Aransas Pass Independent School District Board Policy DEA Local provides for payment of employees during emergency closure. Whereas the public purpose of the district is served by our continued work to support our students and families during periods of closure and our modified operations, as well as our efforts to ensure a safe return to normal school operations for both students and staff. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Aransas Pass Independent School District that the superintendent of schools is authorized to determine periods of closure and/or modified operations as necessary in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Be it further resolved that the superintendent of schools is authorized to compensate all Aransas Pass ISD employees during periods of closure associated with the COVID-19 pandemic and is authorized to implement Aransas Pass ISD Board Policy DEA Local and make determinations administratively regarding compensation for all employees during periods of modified operations associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Be it finally resolved that an emergency meeting held on the 23rd day of March 2020, Board of Trustees of the Aransas Pass Independent School District voted to adopt this resolution. Does the board have any questions? If there are no questions, I have a motion to approve the resolution regarding staff compensation during COVID-19 pandemic.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Stansberry, a second by Mr. Mullinex. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is number 5, topics for future meetings. Is there anything that anybody wants to add to our future meetings? You good for now?
This trumps everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
For now.
Yeah, we moved a
We don't
lot,
need to add
we moved a
anything
lot
else to that
back
plate.
now.
So before I adjourn this meeting, I just want to say that I know we're living in a new normal. It's an uncertain time. There's a lot of fears for all of us with our families and our coworkers. And as a community, I think it's obvious we have to listen to our local, state, and national leaders as far as the precautions that we need to take to protect not only ourselves, but our neighbors, our families, and everyone. So I'm going to really, on behalf of the board, ask our community to please do everything to keep our community safe with following the directives of our local officials. During this unprecedented time, I know our AP community is going to step up. We've witnessed it before in our last disaster, and we've seen the unity that we can empower ourselves with the way we did last time, neighbor helping neighbor, doing everything that we could to make our community come back. We've seen it before, and I know we're going to see it again in the weeks to come. And then before I close the meeting, I'd like to close with a Bible verse that was shared with me by a friend the last couple of days. And after I read it and meditated on it, the verse brings me a lot of hope and peace. So I want to share that with you guys. Psalms chapter 91, verses 9 through 10. Because you made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil will befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling place. Those are a lot of words of comfort for me because I know there's a lot of fear. And I think there's sometimes that we just have to trust in the mighty power that's out there. So with that said, I want to wish all my trustees here and Ms. Branch blessings, and that we keep ourselves safe and the community safe as well. The time is now 6:57, and there being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.